In the fall of 1846, Uranus was the last known planet in the solar system, but scientists were suspicious about what came after because they saw a wobble in Uranus's orbit. A mathematician named Leverrier set out to determine why that was happening. Using mathematical calculations, he concluded that this irregularity was being caused by the gravitational pull of another planet beyond it that could not be seen. He was right. That planet turned out to be Neptune. Finding a planet without seeing it, well, that was a fitting discovery for Neptune, the slippery and easily overlooked ruler of Pisces. Every planet in the solar system is named after a Roman god. But why exactly Neptune was chosen for this one is unclear. Neptune is the god of the sea in Roman mythology, but the stories surrounding him are not as neat and clean as many of the other gods associated with the astrological signs. His personality can be seen as an unpredictable mix. On the one hand, you have a graceful god who lives in a jewel-studded coral mansion somewhere under the sea. He's benevolent enough to bring water to lands that are experiencing drought. On the other hand, he takes pleasure in terrorizing the people of Troy with sea monsters when he feels underappreciated. He's responsible for bringing sailors safely across the sea. However, he's also behind tidal waves and earthquakes. When Neptune is mad, it doesn't matter how good or loyal you've been to him. His destruction is swift and indiscriminate. Neptune's reputation as a god is difficult to follow as well. At first, he was considered a minor deity because he only oversaw fresh water, which is a tiny percentage of the water on Earth. Then the seas were added, but he shared them with the ancient gods Nereus and Ocean. Next, they were just given to Fortuna. Not sure why, but around the year 400 BC, Neptune came out of the shallows as one of the three major gods in Roman mythology. He was given all the fresh water on Earth and all the seas. Let's look at this character. Neptune is drawn to beauty, but he's driven by lust. He had dozens of lovers and hundreds of children. They included sea monsters, some giants, a cyclops, a winged horse, and even a hero who could walk on water. That tells us that anything at all can come from Neptune. Neptune is greedy but creative. He's said to have fashioned the horse out of thin air in order to impress the goddess of the grain. He's a rapist, but he has a special relationship with the gentle dolphin. He moves about the ocean in a chariot drawn by seahorses, surrounded by an entourage of marine creatures and minor deities. Let's not forget the trident he holds. It's a fishing pole, a weapon, and a magic wand. When he's in a bad mood or wants to dish out some petty payback, he taps the ground and up come terrible storms and quakes. Neptune is broadly associated with water. but he's even more broadly associated with formlessness itself. This means both water and energy. Neptune represents the experiences in our lives that overflow, such as emotion, or that flow through us, such as energy. It's linked to eroticism, the aura, the soul, and unobservable concepts like consciousness and infinity. Neptune is supposed to take you on a spiritual journey, but Neptune starts to experience confusion right off the bat when it encounters its opposite, the world of form. Now, the world of form refers to the physical world, the body, and the ego identity. To understand Neptune, we have to examine the ego. What exactly is the ego? In short, it's the I, me consciousness. You see, before your incarnation, there is no you. There's an undifferentiated C. Then you attach to a physical body and you're born in a physical form. You get told what your name is. At some point, you believe it. And from that moment onwards, you begin adding to your ego identity. You might say, I'm a girl, I'm Irish, I'm tall, I'm terrible at math, but I'm good with money. I'm a college grad, extroverted, athletic, divorced, an American, an artist. You play some musical chairs with your ego identity. You may decide that you're not so bad at math after all. And you no longer see yourself as an artist. You're actually more of a scholar than an artist. You always have been. But you see, it's all the same. Your identity keeps you focused on yourself. And with each identification, you go deeper into the ego's identity and further away from the part that was once in the undifferentiated sea. Neptune represents the part of you that always remembers that ocean of energy. The highest expression of Neptune is the enlightened master, the person who experiences the ocean while in the body, the one who looks at this world and perceives heaven, like the Christ or the Buddha. In this kind of lifetime, Neptune gives in the most extreme way and surrenders completely. While your ego identity keeps a ledger about giving and taking, Neptune glides in the ocean of generosity where everything belongs to none of us anyway. But back to mythology. Creation myths are associated with Neptune. Life is almost always born in wetness. And most of the time, these myths include a flood where salt water cleanses the world and it can be born anew. In the chart, this planet is linked to cleansings, the highest form of which is forgiveness. Here, the figure of Christ is a perfect example. How about loving the man who's driving a nail through your wrist, feeling one with the crucifiers, not even needing forgiveness because you never condemn them to begin with? That's a perfect cleansing before anything even gets dirty, and it's Neptune's idea of perfection. This brings us to one of Neptune's main ideas, and that is transcendence. Transcendence means lifting above normal perception. Here are some examples of Neptunian occurrences in everyday life. You fall in love and can barely tell where you end and your lover begins. You might feel transcendence in deep prayer. Maybe a lotus opens up in the middle of your brain and you feel ecstasy raining down. You might have a Neptunian experience in nature where you disappear into the organic, natural world, no longer sure of your identity. It might come when you expand your consciousness using psychedelic medicines. And again, transcendence may come through the awakening of your Kundalini, or when you get lost in tantric sex. When the soul is sailing and you're filled with bliss, when you rise spiritually in any moment of awakening, these are experiences of the sea god. Neptune is behind any moment when your ego steps aside and you channel energy. Perhaps you're acting and you channel a character on the stage. Maybe when you sing, the song is singing you. Perhaps you can't quite say what happened, but now a beautiful poem is on the paper in front of you. This is why Neptune is associated with beauty, channeling, the arts, music, lyrics, and poetry. It's also a Neptunian occurrence when you stand in a museum transfixed by the lines and colors in a stunning photograph. In fact, being stunned means that Neptune is visiting you. The chemicals produced by the brain during romance or hypnosis and all trance states belong to this planet. It's one of the transpersonal planets, don't forget. This means it has features that stretch beyond you as an individual. As an outer planet, Neptune has a collective side. Transcendence is something we can experience collectively. A group meditation is collective. Feeling the Holy Spirit sweep through the church when people pray, when the glory of God comes through the choir, these are all collective Neptune experiences. That all sounds beautiful. So why is this the planet of delusion, illusion, deception, confusion? Well, let's go back to the god of flooding who terrorizes Troy with sea monsters. Neptune's collective experiences can easily turn dark. When a mob behaves unconsciously, when a group becomes hysterical, when there's a collective paranoia or delirium, Neptune is in play. In these cases, whole groups of people disregard the rational mind. The lies and delusions associated with this planet occur naturally in human beings. We're all running around with individual realities. Your experience may not exactly be a lie, but it may contrast with someone who was right there watching the same thing. The nature of our very reality is that atoms are empty. So while the world looks solid, it may not be here at all. And hazy Neptune mistakes one thing for another. It mistakes sacrifice for love, repression of feeling for forgiveness, and humiliation for humility. Checking your brain at the door can look like devotion. We're so confused, and it's so confusing. No wonder Neptune's impulse is to leave the rational and float off into the sea. At the core, Neptune doesn't really want to be here. It either wants the state of potential in the womb or a heavenly life after death. That's why Neptune is drawn to alcohol and opiates. All forms of inebriation belong to this planet. Escapism. Neptune is also known to convert stress into physical illness, and it covers psychiatric conditions because most of those are made up of unregulated thoughts and distorted emotions, inner storms. Asylums, sanitariums, hospitals, convents, and monasteries are all Neptunian too. There are a lot of reasons that Neptune is associated with the spiritual side of religion. Religion asks you to choose faith over analysis. It includes the Neptunian obsession with being cleansed spiritually, being without sin. In religion, you find a soul, the overcoming of individual identity, and the guiltless state of life everlasting. But let's get back to the big question. Why does Neptune bring the dark side to what could be a nice, transcendent experience of life? The ideal of Neptune, as I said, is a seriously enlightened individual. However, few of us will make our awakening experiences permanent. Instead, Neptune will surround faith, healing, and development of intuition, the channel to your soul. With crystal clear intuition, you can navigate any sea. With faith in love, you can overcome any trial. With healing, you can wash yourself clean as long as you live. Neptune says to reach deep within yourself and find the shimmering coral palace under the sea. Neptune's place in the birth chart helps you navigate the spontaneous currents of life. It tells you where you'll find spirituality, confusion, distortion, transcendence, and oceanic experiences. Thank you for watching Secrets from an Astrologer's Desk, the meaning of Neptune. Stay tuned for all the ways you can get in touch for a birth chart reading and full astrological services. I'm Joy. Don't forget to like and subscribe.